guys, welcome back. Our lesson today will be on additive and multiplicative patterns or rules. So there are two types of patterns that we focus on in 5th grade, and they are additive and multiplicative. So what are additive and multiplicative patterns anyways? Well, you heard it right. Even though these words seem long and complicated, the root words that you may have recognized are add in additive and multiply in multiplicative. So we can determine an additive or multiplicative pattern by looking at these three things. We can look at the rule, table, or graph. So let's go ahead and start with rules. So here's a rule: y equals 6 plus x, or you can also write it as x plus 6 equals y. The reason we can do this is because when we add two numbers, it doesn't matter which order the numbers go. 2 plus 3 is 5, or 3 plus 2 is also 5. For a multiplicative rule, we can also have y equals 6 times x, or it may also be written like this: y equals 6x. When there are no operations between the number and a letter, it's a multiplication operation between these two. Or sometimes you may also see it written as y equals 6 parentheses x, and they all mean the same thing. How is this an additive? Because the operation is addition right here. So this is an additive rule. And this is a multiplicative rule because the operation is multiplication. Now let's move along to tables. When all you're given are tables, you have to look for direct relationships between the x and the y values. So all of these are x values and all of these are y values. So in other words, if I was to find this relationship between 1 and 4, I'm going to ask myself, what did I do to the 1 to get to 4? So there are a couple of choices that I can do. I can either add or multiply. I can pick one of the operations and try first. I can try 1 plus 3 gives me 4. And I'm going to see if this rule actually works for what's down here. So I'm going to add the 3 to the x right here. So the x is 2 now. So if I add 2 to 3, do I get 5? Yes, and so I check that. And I'm going to apply the same thing here to see if I get the correct y output. X plus 3, whatever x is the rule. So when I am given a missing space right here, I can apply this exact same rule and get my y value. So 7 plus 3 will give me 10. So when we write a rule for this table, it has to be very specific. When we write, we will start out with either x or y. So x, and what is the rule? Plus 3 will give us the y, or equals y. This is the complete sentence. A lot of us in 5th grade will just say the rule is plus 3. So in order for us to write a complete number sentence, it has to have an x and a y in there as well. Okay, so I'm going to do the same with this multiplicative table right here. Sometimes they don't tell me if this is x or y. When that happens, I'm going to actually put an x in here and I would write y for output. And then what I would do is I would ask myself the exact same question and go through the exact same procedure. 2 plus or times what gives me 8? So 2 plus 6 will give me 8. If my x is now 4, can I use that exact same rule to get me the y value? So in this case, we have 4 plus 6, which actually gives us 10, not 16. Therefore, we know that this rule is actually not the rule for this table. And so we have to try the next thing. I'm going to try multiplication now. So 2 times what gives me 8 times 4. So that means 4 times 4. Is that going to give me 16? Yes, it does. So I know that this rule kind of works for this table. So once I get here, I can actually apply the rule here when x is 5 to find my next y value. As you may have guessed already, because you're brilliant, that 5 times 4 is 20. And again, how do I write this rule for this table? I have to start with an x. So here's my trick. I go up here and I say, okay, here's my x. What did I do to the x? I times it by 4. And this line right here gives me the equal sign. So as I'm writing the rule, I'm actually re-quoting this whole thing. One thing that you may have noticed is how I flipped my x and y. In this number sentence right here, I started with the x, but down here I started with the y. When we're writing rules, it doesn't matter what you start out with, as long as you have x equals y or y equals something that has happened to x. So as you can see, even if we're working with tables, it all goes back to the rules. In this case, because the rule is x plus 3 equals y, the operation is addition, therefore this table is an additive pattern. And for this one, the rule is y equals 4x or 4 times x, and because the operation in this rule is multiplication, therefore this table is considered a multiplicative pattern. In order for a rule to be a rule, it has to work for all of the x values or all of the input values in the table. Notice how all of these are just add 4 or plus 4, and all of these are times 3, nothing else. Secondly, a table can only have one rule or pattern. It's either additive pattern or multiplicative pattern, but it can never be both. Lastly, rules must be written in complete number sentences. You need to check to see if there are any x's or y's. In this case, I have y here and an x there, so I know that my rule is in a complete sentence. Sometimes our letters can also change. We don't always have to work with x and y. Sometimes we will be working with u and t. We don't know. But as long as you have those variables or those letters in there, then you know that you have written your rules in complete sentences. So that's it for this lesson, guys. Remember, we need to keep on practicing, and if you still struggle with it, it's okay. I really love this quote. It says, "The expert in anything was once a beginner."